right, where is Marty? It's just a waterfall. And some green... Ah, there he is, peeking out on the sides. How you all doing, everybody? Yes, I'm on the hill, looking down. Not looking down on creation. Not like the Carpenter song. Oh, that's a lovely song, though. My ex-wife, she could sing Karen Carpenter music, Replica, because my wife was a professional singer. So this is a time for honesty now. A lot of people really don't know so much about me, so I'll disclose a few things to you. Well, I lived in Australia for a long time. I was a surfer in Sydney. I attended as many assemblies during the 70s as I could. I met Nathan Noor in 1969. I nearly killed myself in 1969 when I stuck a fork in a 2-bar electric fire. Yes, I shouldn't really have been here, but it wasn't for the fact that I was wearing Wellington boots that saved my life. Anyway, I think I've told this story in a previous video, maybe 2 years ago. So I've done quite a lot. I was bullied, bullied at school, because in Australia they're very nationalistic, and you have to salute the flag. So as a Jehovah's Witness young man, I'd be there in assembly. We call it the quadrangle. Great word, that, isn't it? Quadrangle. And everybody would be stood there like that, and they'd have to salute the flag. So I would have to leave, get some kind of permission to leave, so I wouldn't be there. But somehow some teachers just thought it were funny to keep me stood there while I wasn't saluting the flag. My arms were completely straight down, and the rest of the kids who were conforming to nationalism, they're all saluting the flag, except me. So I got bullied. I had to learn how to fight. I wasn't as good a fighter as my brother, because my brother, who was an elder, he stepped down, but in his sort of worldly life, he was a street fighter in Sydney, and Manly and Newport Beach, Avalon Beach, and he used to knock people out. I'll tell you another story when he knocked an elder out. Oh, that was funny. That was at Dunster's farm. But this elder, you see, he made the mistake of putting his arm and pulling our Colin back. Well, you don't do that. You don't lay your hands on someone who used to be a blinking street fighter, and his instincts are like, bang, you're down on the bloody floor. So he thought he could embarrass our Colin in front of all the girls. And that was a big mistake. So our Colin just went bang and slammed him one. And I remember he had to go before the 3 elder committee about it, but he was repentant. I will say that about our kid, even though he's as hard as nails, and I don't think he's ever lost a fight yet. He would always be able to say sorry if he's sort of made a genuine mistake, and he was sorry that he knocked this elder out, and then they just moved on from that. So he didn't get reproved, he didn't get disfellowshipped for that. But it was funny. It was funny. Yeah. I remember him telling me about it when he got out that judicial committee, and I says, "You've not been disfellowshipped, have you?" He went, No. And I could see that he was genuinely sorry, and that's what it's about, isn't it? Really, if a person is truly repentant for something that they've done, an outburst of temper or whatever it is, and they're sorry, then there'd be no need, would there, to disfellowship them. But there was a bit of a talk on the platform about it, you know. And what was funny to me was quite a lot of the non-physical brothers were giving our Colin a wide berth for quite a few months after that. Yeah, it was funny to me, that. Right, I meant to ask how everybody is. I hope they're doing well. I've just come back from my mother's, and because she gave me a piece of paper. She wants me to look up this watchtower. Excuse me, I know I'm on the hill still, and I'll come down in a bit. But we can chat while I'm still on the hill. So she says, "Man, will you look up the watchtower June 15th, 2012? So I did do. And this is the one that's titled, Jehovah is a Reader of Secrets. Yes, I'm fascinated with the old secrets. I've got to admit it, Certainly fascinated with end-time prophecies and things like that. She knows that, so she's given me that to look at. So that's what we'll do. We'll have a look at some of these things together. and we'll get a cross-section of people's opinions. I think that's the way to go on this. So let's get into it. Right, so I've come down. Yeah, I was getting a bit of vertigo up there, a bit high, that hill. Not easy to get up as well. You know, getting all the way. Well, it's really steep, isn't it? You know, you've got to virtually just tack your way all the way up there like that, and then it's higher than you think. That, you know, that'll take you a good 10 minutes to get up there if you apply yourself. Anyway, let's not be daft, Martin. You know, these are nobody's fools. Right, yeah. I want to talk about Genesis 3:15 again. I have to do, because this is the backbone of the Bible. For sure it is. I mean, let's look at this in pure logic alone, right? This is just, Jehovah is putting down the ground rules to Satan, the serpent. This is straight after the transgression by Adam and Eve. Jehovah's made a contingency plan right away. You know, he's had his plan thwarted by the cunningness of the serpent, and Jehovah is making this cast iron promise that the two seeds would never ever be friends. They would be sworn enemies, and that's what Jehovah's saying here. I find it fascinating. Every other prophecy and everything that happens in the Bible would only occur because of this. Let me explain more. Would there really be an ultimate seed? Would there be the need for an ultimate seed if the original intention was that men would live forever and never die? No. This contingency plan would take into consideration that Jehovah is prophesying that there will be this seed that comes, and this the balancing of the scales to give back what was lost. But there's so many facets to this scripture, not just the way in which it talks about this enmity between the two seeds, and a woman is mentioned, the same woman of Revelation 12:1, the jeweled headdress woman that is seen in the heavenly realm, which is representative, in my opinion, to a spirit creatures or a wife-like heavenly organization. This is my opinion. I think other people might believe that this woman is earthly Eve. I don't. Never will. So we get to this piece of paper that my mum thrust in my hand. I've got it here. I know you can't see it. I mean, I've got to be honest with you. My mother's writing's getting smaller and smaller. It's more difficult to see it. And even when I put my glasses on to read her writing, she's got to the point now where she kind of writes her own way, and it's so small it's really hard to decipher. So I'll have to ask on a couple of words in there. I can see 99% of it. There's just that 1% that I've just got to get double clarity on. It's fascinating to me, though, about secrets that are getting revealed at this time. It's not just this prediction about the world powers and the accuracy and how each of the world powers at some stage have tried to attack God's people. And we have absolute classic examples of God's people being attacked by all these secular world powers through history, starting with Egypt and continuing all the way through to our time. And I'm finding it more and more fascinating, surprisingly enough. Yeah, the first prophecy in the Bible is my favourite scripture. Always been fascinated with this. You get a glimpse into how Jehovah's thinking at this time with this, when he lays down those ground rules. Right, let me just see if I can minimise that for a sec. Okay. And I just want to make that on the level of there. Yeah. Right, okay, so the seed. So there's two sides. You look at this and you see that there's two sides, but Jehovah is absolutely clear about one thing, and that is, uses that word enmity, and then they've just put here, or hatred. So do followers of Jehovah hate followers of Satan? What do you think? Well, I'd say yes. Yes, you've got to hate, haven't you? Anything that's opposed to spiritual worship, you'd have to hate it. You can't love both, can you? Can you have a foot in each camp? I wouldn't have thought so. So we've just got the two sides according to this. Interesting. So I want to talk about now, who was the first apostate? In view of Genesis 3:15, who would have been the first apostate? Probably not recorded in the Bible the way I've just mentioned it, but certainly if Satan in the early stages wasn't happy with his particular role in the heavenly realm at that time, then no doubt he would have murmured. He would have complained. And there would have been angels that were listening to those murmurs and to those complaints. They would have then formed an alliance with him, partnership. They would have become part of his seed. And Satan was then gathering his seed against God's heavenly organization's seed. There's two sides. It's almost like two boxers, isn't it, going into a fight? And each boxer has their own supporter. I'm just looking at it from human point of view. So that's what Satan did. He murmured. He wasn't happy. He might have just done it insidious. He just might have done it in the most matter-of-fact way. It might not have been scathing at first, and it could have been really tactful. He might have just said one or two things, I'd like to make my own decisions in this particular establishment, meaning the heavenly realm. I'd like to do this, and I'd like to do that. I don't want to be told to, what to do all the time. I want to make my own decisions. So Satan was murmuring. I think that's why Jehovah hates murmuring. And that's why he dealt with the murmurers of Korah, Dathan and Abiram the way he did. Because he's had so many examples of it previously to that. And so Satan got people to listen. So Satan has a very, very powerful class of people who follow him. Now I want to go to how people think, why does God allow all this wickedness and unhappiness to continue and continue? And I just want to bring up that particular instant where Jesus was tempted after he was at his lowest ebb, because he'd been fasting and obviously meditating and praying to Jehovah at the time. And then Satan took him and gave him those temptations, didn't he? Now he offered him, now this is interesting, right? He offered him all the kingdoms of the world. So how could he offer him all the kingdoms of the world if he wasn't the ruler of the system at that time? He couldn't, could he? But he was saying, I have all this, all these earthly nations, all these earthly governments at that time were bowing down to me. Maybe he gave him like a vision of the future as well. So a vision of the future rulers to come and kingdoms to come in this particular dream. And he showed him everything. Untold riches, and people would have bowed down to him, because that's what they were doing with Satan. The earthly governments, they were bound down to him, and Satan's seed were the ruling authorities of the earth at that time. And he offered all that to Christ. So he must have been the ruler to offer them to Christ. He had to have been the absolute ruler of the earth and all governments. Otherwise he couldn't have offered it to him. He couldn't have given him something. You can't give somebody a gift if you don't own that gift, can you? Look, I'm going to give you a gold bar bullion or something like that. You can't make a promise like that if you can't lay your hands on that to give it. So what I'm saying is, yes, there are two classes of people, and the two seeds that emanate and support each of these powerful, superhuman, spiritual beings. Those that want to love and live by Bible principles will be supporters of God's kingdom, and they will support that kingdom, and they will preach about that kingdom. Those that hate anything to do with the recognition of the kingdom, and those that want to malign it and those that want to stop it, will be those that are supporting the serpent seed. And that's the way I see it. I can't see it any other way. Not being so well today. Neither is my mother. A bit worried about her. I don't know how to say this, but I don't think my mother's going to make it. I know I lost my dad 2 years ago, but I don't think my mother's going to make it. I don't think she's going to see the Great Tribulation. I think maybe Jehovah's going to put her to sleep early. I just don't know. I've just got this feeling that's come over me recently that is telling me that both my mum and dad are going to be dead before we go into the stage where all religion is banned, which is a worry. And that's another story, how religion is going to get banned. How is Jehovah going to force an earthly organisation to remove religion? I mean, I shouldn't really doubt it. I mean, whatever he wants to do, he can do. It's just that it seems unlikely, doesn't it, that millions and millions of people will just stop. They'll stop giving and supporting these religions, and they will come to nothing. But it will be God that does it. It will be God that puts that idea into the political powers for them to do it. And that's fascinating to me as well. In fact, everything that's happening just lately, not just with what's happening with the world being shut down, the preaching at the moment non-existent. I mean, has the preaching been fulfilled? People say, no, Martin, they've not. There's about 7 banned countries where the preaching's not been heard. Well, think about it. Look at the scripture again. This good news of the kingdom will be preached in all the inhabited earth for a witness to all the nations, and then the end will come. Okay. So Kim Jong-un and a few other banned countries. Yeah, laugh at that. I couldn't get his name right. Could have. Kim Jong-un doesn't allow religions, Christian religions, to freely practice. And Putin is clamping down. Does that mean that they haven't had a witness? I think they have had a witness. And that's what that scripture means, for a witness to all the nations, and then the end will come. So it really depends on what the definition of a total witness is. And why do the Jehovah's Witnesses preach? Why do they? Well, isn't it because Jesus said to his disciples at that time, you know, once I go away, I want you to continue, and you take this message, and the same message that Jesus was teaching about, incidentally, people. Let's think about Jesus' message now. He was proclaiming about his Father's kingdom to come, God's kingdom. The Jehovah's Witnesses are proclaiming about the kingdom that is soon to overthrow the last human willpower. That's remarkably similar. The Jehovah's Witnesses are just preaching the same message. It's simply God's kingdom. Jesus Christ spoke about God's kingdom. When he gave the answer back to Satan on many a time, he referred to God's kingdom. That's the kingdom in which he serves. He serves his Father's kingdom. That's the kingdom in which he was proclaiming about. The Jehovah's Witnesses are talking about God's kingdom, the same, one of the same. Jesus Christ and Jehovah's Witnesses' message is parallel, the same. There's no difference. So has it come to the end? I don't know. And I'm not likely to know, because it's not for man, and it's not for speculators to decide when it comes to an end. It's Jehovah that decides when it comes to an end. And he's not going to allow it to come to an end if there's still a chance that that message is going to be received by receptive, good-hearted Christian individuals. He's not going to cut it short while that's going to be a likely scenario to happen. And I often thought about that and thought how sometimes people hurry God up and say, you know, this is taking too long, can you get on with it? But they don't realise the bigger picture is that he's allowing enough time, more than enough time, for everybody to come to their senses. Even if you've got to a point now where you believe that he can't offer you anything, he can't add any value to your life, I think you'll find that you're going to need him before he needs you. And maybe that's where what has to happen. Maybe we do have to come to the realization that we have to get closer to him, because he ain't coming to us because we're not making that first step. And I speak about myself in that regard. I'm not making that step towards him anymore. So why should he even bother to lift a finger to help me?